Friends, I do not have a good opening joke here. I'll be honest with you, I'm not feeling funny at the moment. I'm sorry if that feels unsettling. I have spent the last 11 years making sure that I never ventured into a topic that some felt was political in nature. I'm well aware that one of the reasons that makes our congregation special and unique is because indeed we are blessed to have folks like you who find themselves all over the political spectrum. And yet all of you continue to feel welcome, and I love that, and that is always my intention. And I'm proud to report that no one has ever resigned for political reasons over the last 2 different administrations. But the COVID years, COVID nearly brought this and so many other places down. Some wanted faster and more sweeping safety protocols. Others didn't want any. Still others didn't want to attend in person unless they knew everyone was vaccinated and so forth. Those were rough waters. Thank you for your trust that Cole and me leadership navigated us through those waters. But this morning I want to share my thoughts and feelings about a topic that may very well be triggering for some. As a parent, as a Jew, as a human being, I want to talk for a moment about what I'm seeing in the climate. All of us have our own journeys, whether they're intellectual, emotional, spiritual, or action-oriented when it comes to the climate crisis. Climate change is not an easy topic, and it is very natural for a lot of feelings to come up. And while it's not and nearly impossible to divorce the feelings from the political stances that surround this issue, I ask that you give me an opportunity to present to you why I'm choosing to talk about this more than anything, not because it's political, but because to me, it's a Jewish moral imperative. So or perhaps maybe you should take a moment, close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, check in with yourself, knowing that we're about to talk about climate change and climate action and what you're feeling right now. Fear, grief, guilt, trepidation, excitement, numbness, relief, anger, frustration. They are all normal, healthy human reactions. I ask that you spend and send some breath and compassion to those feelings. They connect us, and they allow ourselves to feel them. And that's how we're able to get unstuck and be together and take action together. As American Jews, we have long played active roles in the world's most pressing challenges and crises. This was true of the Black-led civil rights movement of the 60s and the effort to end genocide in Darfur in the 2000s. Our current climate crisis demands our attention, our voice, and our action. I believe we are facing an existential threat on a scale like anything humans have faced in history, and we, the Jewish community, must must help to bring all of our and its power and people to ensure a livable and sustainable planet for generations to come. Because tikkun olam, repair, it's not a metaphor. If there isn't a Jewish argument for doing our part to do something, to do Jewish, then Judaism has no meaning. It is the literal language of our faith, of Judaism, to participate in the repair of the world. It astounds me that Noah's Ark is a classic children's story. I'm sure you can see the image in your mind's eye. Giraffes, lions, zebras, packed side by side in a compact boat floating over a blue sea with a rainbow and a white dove in the sky above. The scene signals that this is a lovely children's story, perfect from age 0 to 5. Picture books abound. But if we look a little deeper, Noah's Ark is one of the darkest stories we've ever inherited. Not only do the world's human beings and creatures and all terrestrial ecosystems perish mere generations of after having been created, not only is the obliteration a direct result of the immorality of human beings, but the one person, the one adult in touch with God before the ordeal doesn't say one word of protest. How is this a children's story? The Torah tells us that Noah was a righteous man, blameless and pure in his generation. An 18th century commentary answers the question that the Jewish sages have posed for millennia. How can we call Noah righteous when he did nothing to try and prevent the flood? The answer is that there are or is a certain kind of righteous person who serves God, but is so lowly in their own eyes that they think to themselves, who am I? Who am I to pray to God to reverse the bad decree, and therefore doesn't pray? Even though Noah was a great and blameless, righteous person, he was small in his own eyes. And he did not have faith that he was a powerful, righteous person with the ability to annul the decree. So he was righteous, but not righteous enough. Not righteous enough to try to talk to God out of sending the flood and destroying creation. And I believe this answer about Noah speaks directly to us today. Each of us is witnessing rising sea, superstorms, melting glaciers, raging fires, extinctions. It's the modern day flood of climate change. The upending, in fact, of the very promise God made to Noah that season, seed time, and harvest will never cease. And yet, like Noah, most of us stay in that place of inaction or token action. We see the global economic machinery at work. We know the entrenched political process. We learn the grim science, and we are small in our own eyes. Who are we? Who are we to even try? What can we possibly offer that is worth doing at this late moment? Now, it's dangerous for me to try to guess what you're thinking right now, But there tends to be two prevailing schools of thought on this subject. Some are tired of this topic, tired of being alarmed, maybe even skeptical, more than anything that is just a natural cycle we're living through. I mean, the sky's been falling since Al Gore made his inconvenient PowerPoint, right? Others are deeply concerned about the problem of climate. Seems so vast, and we wonder, where do we even start? Will anything that I do make a difference? Both instances, we have problem fatigue. Add climate change to the list of things that are broken in the world. Whew, it is overwhelming. We do nothing, maybe worry. We're good at that. Jewish-French philosopher Raymond Aron, who fled to London in 1940 just as Hitler was rising to power, asked whether he knew what was happening at the time in the East. He answered, "I knew, but I did not believe it. And because I did not believe it, I did not know." The shofar blast that we're going to hear this morning, the shofar blast is meant to wake us up from our complacency. It's meant to wake us up from our disbelief. And I think it is no more powerful way than to have a teenager who happens to be my son, beside the point, but to have a teenager be the one who blows that very shofar for us, to be the one to move us to see the world that he, his brother, and his sisters, and all of the other children are going to inherit. The idea that we are commanded to do something may not be reason enough to do it. If we're honest with ourselves, sometimes we treat those tablets like the 10 suggestions, not the 10 commandments. However, I think there is one commandment that every single one of us takes dead seriously. We are commanded to protect our children and our grandchildren. It's not the meek that will inherit the earth, friends. It is our kids and our grandchildren. If you have the opportunity to talk with, and more importantly, listen to our teens as often as I do, you will hear about the urgency of now. And yet, what do we tell them? Sorry, guys, you're just kids. So idealistic. You don't know. Wait till you're older, you'll understand. Isn't that what the older generation always says? Isn't that what our parents said to us? Put yourself in their shoes just for a moment. If you have more life ahead of you than behind you, as teens do, the future looks very different than it may to those of you who are older. My intent is not to scare you. My intent is to help us overcome the overwhelm. We need to stop dismissing what those who are younger than us are insisting. As the planet warms, the forest fire season will essentially become year-round. The hurricanes and the typhoons will become old norms. Dorian, Maria, Katrina, Harvey, these names will become household guests that come back year after year. It's a cascading effect that is just downright apocalyptic. One of the most vulnerable places actually is Israel, but it's not just about Israel. Our Canadian North is melting twice as fast as the rest of the planet. We think global warming, we think melting icebergs and polar bears who don't have a home. But what we need to understand, what we seem not to understand, is that everything is expected to change. It's all connected. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, the landscapes we see, the oceans, the seasons, the daily routine, the quality of life. Our children will have to adapt. They will have to dress differently. They will have to behave differently. They will have to live differently. Because if the planet keeps warming even another degree, we're going to see worse drought than we already have. We're going to see disease in forests, which will become deserts. In many places, particularly like Israel, right here in the Valley of the Sun, the heat is becoming literally unbearable. They tell us it will be impossible to exist not too far into the future without an air conditioner. It will no longer be a source of comfort, a topic of comfort, but a topic of survival. A broken air conditioner may very well become an issue of life or death. We're talking about the most fateful issue there is, the most Jewish issue there is, our children's lives. They literally depend on what we do now. We learned all too well this summer how it only takes a single spark to start a fire in Arizona, New Mexico, Washington, California, etc. But we can be a different spark, one that starts a flame not of destruction, but a flame of passion for the most fundamental of all commandments, to be good stewards of the earth. Because as the Torah tells us, if we break it, we're not getting another one. There is no planet B. But we're not powerless. Our congregation, over 400 families, 1,000 people approximately here today. And you all have friends, you all have family, extended family, and we indeed have influence. I mean, it starts with literally, if everyone were to change their light bulbs to LEDs, or more broadly reduce their carbon footprint, we would just begin to take real impact. It would be real for us. If we do it, if we lead the community, then maybe we can inspire other homes. And maybe the Valley of the Sun's Jewish community might follow. And if they follow, if the people who are called to help repair the brokenness in our world stop talking about Tikkun Olam and start doing Tikkun Olam in a considered and consistent way, then others will join us. I know it to be true. Our tradition teaches us we are not obligated to complete the task, but neither are we free to desist from it. We cannot be numb to this. We must not be indifferent. So here's what I'm asking us to do. What our teens and our young adults are begging us to do. What Judaism has always obligated us to do since the time of creation. These high holy days are about vows and oaths. So let's make one. Each of us right here and now, in front of our children and our grandchildren, a promise to them as much as it is a promise to ourselves. Let's put the planet and everything on it, all life on it. Let's make it first priority. Now, I would usually have you walk out with an action item, but I understand this is a lot. So after the holiday, you will receive an email from me. I ask you to open it or relate to this sermon. It'll have a link. It'll ask you if you're interested and willing to take a calculation of your household environmental footprint. My challenge is that as you study that, as you look into that you make an 18% reduction. Our rabbis teach that if you want to make change the direction of your life, you simply need to take one step in the other direction. So I plan to have workshops to help us how to change the way we eat so perhaps it's better for the planet, how to reduce waste and consumption. We simply need to take the first step, and we will help you take the next. We can walk this road together. And I invite you on Wednesday in 2 days during our regularly scheduled Schmooze with the Rabbi slot. Our friend and colleague, Reverend Doug Bland, who's actually here, a guest, and Melanie Beichman, who are here joining us today, will be my guest speaker, will join us. Doug is one of the founders of the Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, an organization whose mission is to help mobilize people of faith and conscience to care for the earth. I hope you'll join the conversation, but that won't be the last, that's just the first. And why a challenge to reduce our home's carbon footprint by 18%? Well, duh, it's a Jewish number. I mean, that's the first reason. It means chai. It stands for life. And this is about our lives and the lives of our children and our grandchildren. The life of this planet we're committed to and commanded to guard and protect. I hope and pray you'll join me in making that pledge. But honestly, the changes we make at home are not going to save the planet. They may help in the healing process. They may even go a long way in modeling and showing for our children that we're handing over to them, that we care. But frankly, the change we need is much bigger. We need a change that's not just national, but global. So that's why I think there's one more thing we need to do, and it's connected particularly to this holiday and this season. I truly think we need to make teshuvah. We need to apologize to the planet. We need to apologize to God for being lousy caretakers of this miraculous world. We need to examine why we've been so wasteful and careless with the precious gift, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the land we live on. And we need to make the promise to make it right. We need to letaken olam b'malchut shaddai, to restore the world to the majesty God created it. In the words of Elie Wiesel, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. Before God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, God asked Moses who would guarantee that they would endure l'dor vador from generation to generation. Moses said his successor Joshua would, and God said nope. So Moses suggested the leaders of the tribes, and God said nope. Moses then named the elders of the community, and God said no. Finally, Moses offered the idea that the children would be the guarantors that the teachings of Torah would not be lost from one generation to the next. And he was right. Our children and our grandchildren are reminding us now, as our tradition always intended, that caring for our earth, being guardians of the planet, is our obligation as Jews. It's a promise we made to God as we stood looking at Sinai. It's a promise we must make to ourselves as Jews commanded to repair the world. It's a promise we must make to our children and grandchildren as they stand looking up to us as the waters begin to rise beneath their feet. We are not obligated to complete the task, but neither are we free to desist from it. Please join me. Please join our congregation to take meaningful action. Our children's literal future depends on it. And we have proven that we can indeed change the world. So let's use our collective faith and our collective action to change it for good. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's word as we say, Amen.